The following has been a Shirt Off Your Back production. ShirtOffYourBackAZ.com. Hello and welcome to the Shirt Off Your Back podcast, where we always press continue. So I'm going with a little bit of a different theme for this episode, in case you can't tell. A little bit of a different music. If you're watching me on YouTube, you can see there's a little bit of a different background. I was thinking about trying to do different themes for each podcast based on the content, but I realized that would be pretty difficult. But this episode tended to lend itself to this topic. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see I have a video game on the green screen in the background playing behind me. And part of the reason I have a video game is I want to talk about gamification. And if you haven't heard of that, gamification is gaining some popularity in education circles, and it's very utilized in apps and in games, and games within apps. So looked it up on Wikipedia, just got a broad-based definition. Gamification is the strategic attempt to enhance systems, services, organizations, and activities in order to create similar experiences to those experienced when playing games in order to motivate and engage users. This is generally accomplished through the application of game design elements and game principles, dynamics, and mechanics in non-game contexts. It can also be defined as a set of activities and processes to solve problems or by using or applying the characteristics of game elements. Gamification is part of persuasive system design, and it commonly employs game design elements to improve user engagement, organizational productivity, flow, learning, and crowdsourcing, knowledge retention, employee recruitment and evaluation, ease of use, usefulness of symptoms, physical exercise, traffic violations, voter apathy, public attitudes about alternative energy, and more. A collection of research on gamification shows that a majority of studies on gamification find it has positive effects on individuals. However, individual and contextual differences exist. So there's the Wikipedia definition. I realize Wikipedia isn't necessarily the most godsend of sources, but I stumbled across this concept, Wikipedia, on YouTube. There is someone by the name of Anna Lorena Fabrega, Miss Fab on YouTube, MSFAB, and she does a lot of stuff on education, what's good, what's not so good about the education system. And I am big on gamification within the education system because of video games, right? In the video, they talk about Mark Rober, and he talks about the Super Mario effect and how kids can learn to fail, and they learn from their failures, right? They learn that, okay, if I go this way, I die. So next time I get to that point in the level, I need to go a different direction, or I need to try something different. So they learn through failure. And that gamification effect has a lot of different applications in other areas of life. And it especially applies to fitness and weight loss. You know, you can get so far and something doesn't work, and you can reevaluate, re-strategize. You have another life, right? You have another chance to try to kill the bad guy, to try to burn that extra fat, to try to get those 10,000 steps. And you see this throughout the weight loss industry, throughout the fitness industry, in apps, right? So the Fitbit app, you can do step challenges with friends and family, with friends that you're linked up with on Fitbit. That's sort of a gamification of weight loss, right? You're playing a game with somebody else. It's sort of a game within the app. I know there are lots of weight loss apps out there, and they all have some sort of gamification built into them. And it's not necessarily a foolproof technique, right? Because they're intended to leverage people's natural desires. People want to socialize, people want to learn, people want to master things, they want to compete, they want to achieve things, they want some kind of status, they want to be able to say that I accomplished this, right? They want to be able to get a trophy, they want to be able to have something tangible at the end of their journey. And Within education, I'm not exactly sure what that would look like. I mean, you think of types of rewards, right, that you would get in a video game. There's points, there's new skins, there's, you can unlock certain abilities, unlock power-ups and things like that the further you progress in the game. So there's an element of that, I think, in education where kids want to learn, right? And they're hungry to learn new things, but they're also afraid to fail. So gamification tries to get them less afraid to fail. And there's some people within the gamification circles that should say, or that will say, you should eliminate grades, right? And eliminate points. But you get points in a video game, and a lot of times you get grades in a video game. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but I'm not an educator. I work in health and wellness, so there's an element of education to what I do, but I don't sit in a classroom full of students and educate them. I'm personally not an advocate for eliminating grades, but if gamification works and the kids learn and more kids learn because of it, then I think it's a great thing. I mentioned, you think about the different things you get in a video game. Sometimes there's like a status bar, or you collect money and you have to collect so much money to buy a certain sword so you can beat this bad guy, right? And I have the video game Mega Man X behind me, and part of the reason I chose some game footage for that game is in every Mega Man game, there is a certain order you can beat the bad guys in, and it makes the game easier. So there'll be a boss that will have ice, right, as his primary weapon. And if you beat that guy and then you go to the level that is full of fire, the fire elements in the level won't be as prominent, right? So it rewards you for doing certain things by making other levels easier. And there's really good psychology built into that, because when you learn how to do something, you can learn to learn, right? And you can learn that you can learn. When you accomplish a task, it's sort of rewarding, but at the same time, it solidifies something in your mind that says, hey, I can do this. I can learn how to do this. This is an achievable task. And here's the results. Here's the reward for it. And a lot of times those skills that you learn by doing task A, B, and C, they can be applied to task X, Y, and Z. So if it takes discipline to finish up school, right, to finish a college degree, or if it takes discipline to complete a work project on time or ahead of schedule, that can be applied to fitness and weight loss, right? Because if it takes discipline to do one thing, it's going to take discipline to do another thing. So there's a little bit of a gamification there. I think the key with education is going to be making the rewards visible and making the rewards tangible so kids can compete. So one thing that I've seen, and I've been trying to find ways to utilize this, but I saw it in a training class I took. The trainer had rolls of tickets. He had 2 rolls, and the tickets, they were identical in roll 1 and roll 2. So if you had ticket number 1, 00001 on roll A, there was 00001 on roll B. And every time you answered a question or you participated in an activity, he would give you a ticket, and then he would tear a ticket off the other roll and put it in a little bucket. And he didn't say anything the first day that he did it. He just did it. And everybody's like, okay, what's going on? But people started raising their hands and they'd get a ticket. And at the end of the class, he drew a number from the bucket. He drew a ticket from the bucket, and he said, whoever has this number, come forward. And I forget who had, it wasn't me, because I never win anything, but somebody had that ticket, and they won like a $20 Subway gift card or a Starbucks gift card or something like that. And sure enough, the next day, everybody was participating and everybody was raising their hand. So there was a little bit of a gamification there. Make the rewards for accomplishing tasks, make them very tangible, and make them visible to other players so there's a little bit of competition, right, to compete. And that's just it. You make existing tasks, you make tasks within the app, within the project, within the training, you make it feel more like a game. And you do some role playing, you do some challenges, you add some narrative to it. But if you can gamify learning, it works on so many different levels. So how do you gamify fitness and weight loss? One way you might do it is say, okay, you know what, Monday I'm going to get 10,000 steps. And if you get 10,000 steps, you reward yourself with a new pair of walking shoes, or maybe a nice new coffee mug, or a nice new water bottle, or something that is tangible. And another way you might gamify that is, I'm going to get 10,000 on Monday, and then I'm going to strategize and come up with a way to get 12,000. And then I'm going to strategize and come up with a way to get 14,000. And then I'm going to strategize and come up with a way to get 16,000, and so on, right? You learn as you grow. And that's part of gamification. There's points, there's leaderboards, there's graphs, there's teammates, and there's sort of a hierarchy with it, right? You level up, and eventually there's going to be leaders, there's going to be people that figure out the game. And this almost exists naturally in life, right? A lot of psychologists and a lot of sociologists, and I know there's some pushback on this recently, and I don't think there should be, but hierarchies are going to exist naturally in nature. And if you get a group of people together, they're going to form a hierarchy, right? And how does that fit within gamification? If you think about, the bad guys, the good guys, and things in games, they exist, right? And there's always a head boss, and a lot of times there's mini bosses and stuff like that. So if you think about a hierarchy of, you have to do task A, B, and C before you can get to task X, Y, and Z, right? You have to work your way up, and you have to defeat these other little bosses before you can get to the big boss, and there's going to be some dynamic elements there. There's going to be some things that push you to want to keep going to fight the big boss, despite, you keep losing on this mini boss, despite you keep having issues on this one level, and you want to get past it, and you want to get past it, and you want to get past it, so you can finally just make it to that big boss, so you can finally finish that project, so you can finally lose that last 5 pounds, right? And that's that motivation. That's where that motivation comes in, is there's a little bit of a tangible reward, but you also learn along the way. And you learn, okay, I know how to beat this guy now. I know where his weakness is. I know what I did wrong on this project. I know, what I did wrong on this particular level, or what I did wrong on this assignment. And you can begin to strategize and go a different way. It's sort of the idea where if you're walking along and you fall into a pit, ideally you're not going to fall in the same pit over and over again, right? You're going to find a way to jump over the pit, a way to go around the pit, a way to build a bridge to go over the pit, whatever it takes. You're going to find a way to stop falling in that pit over and over again, unless you're a masochist, unless you like falling into the same pit and running into the same problems over and over and over again. And that's gamification. I mean, it's been applied in so many different aspects of life. It's been applied in, marketing and weight loss and health, in work, in so many different aspects of life. I mean, you think of the military. There's some aspect of gamification in the military when they do trainings, right? I'm sure that they have some kinds of competitions, and they have incentives to do well, of course. Persuasive system design. You need to persuade people to learn by rewarding them. And sometimes you don't necessarily have to have tangible rewards either. You can get them to recognize the learning as the reward and part of the process. So what did you learn by doing this that can be applied elsewhere? Kind of like I talked about with discipline, right? Wow, it took a lot of discipline to lose that 2 pounds this week. You went to a barbecue and you only had one burger, and the rest you had a bunch of salads, and you didn't drink any alcohol at all. That's awesome. What worked well? If you could go back and reflect, and if you could go back and think about that event, what worked well? And how can that be applied at the next barbecue? Or how can it be applied in other contexts and other arenas, right? So gamification is huge. And I think a lot of people that play video games understand this, and it drives me nuts with my kids because they play video games, which is fine. I don't have anything against video games, but then they watch people play video games on YouTube. And I've thought a lot about this, and I think they do that because some people are just really entertaining and they're fun to watch and they're funny, but they also learn how to do things, right? And they also can kind of go peek on YouTube and say, okay, how do I beat this boss? Or I know there's got to be something here, and they can go and peek. And you might call it cheating, but you might also call it playing the game, right? They're using their resources. They're learning that, oh, this person on YouTube does walkthroughs or does playthroughs on this game, so I could use that resource, right? They're learning how to be resourceful and learning how to adapt and overcome with something that they can't fix. And it works on so many different levels if you think about how you can apply that concept, right, of using resources and using what you learned and apply it elsewhere. So that's it, gamification of weight loss. I highly recommend you go check out Miss Fab's video on YouTube. I will put a link to it in the show notes, what video games teach us about failure. And she references the Super Mario effect by Mark Rober. If you've watched YouTube for any amount of time, I'm sure you've seen Mark Rober. He has his own YouTube channel. He used to work for NASA. Does a lot of science and education stuff. She has some great stuff on Twitter as well, great stuff on YouTube. And I will link to the Wikipedia page as well. I read a little bit off of that for this podcast on gamification. Again, Wikipedia is not the... it's not necessarily the holy Bible of knowledge, but it definitely had some really good points on it and some good little educational points and ways that you can think about gamification. So that's it, gamification of weight loss. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. As a reminder, we have a Patreon page. We post every episode on Patreon, as well as offering some goodies to our patrons. If you sign up for a different tier, you get some t-shirts, you get some goodies sent to you. And at some point, we're going to start doing some bonus content on our Patreon page for our patrons as well. So we're looking forward to that. You can follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. I do have a Twitter and an Instagram for Shirt Off Your Back as well. I don't post on it that much. I'm trying to figure out if it is better for me to use my own or if I like having one separate for the podcast and the business and all that as well. Something I might have to gamify. I don't know. But again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.